The gallery smelled of pine and old money. I inhaled deeply as I straightened the last ornament on the miniature Christmas tree perched on my desk, its silver bells catching the afternoon light filtering through the tall windows. December 23rd always brought a particular kind of quiet to the Yilmaz Gallery, the kind that settled over the city like fresh snow before the holiday chaos truly began. I was Aise Demir, 25 years old, and I had worked here for 3 years. Long enough to know every painting's provenance by heart. Long enough to recognize Kamal Yilmaz's footsteps in the corridor above my office. Long enough to have developed what I refused to acknowledge as anything more than professional admiration for a man I barely knew beyond our formal interactions. The velvet box appeared on my desk, sometime between my lunch break and 2 o'clock. I discovered it when I returned from the storage room, carrying a portfolio of authentication documents for the new Klimt acquisition. The box was the color of Christmas itself, deep crimson velvet with gold edging, small enough to fit in my palm but heavy with implication. My fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the lid. Nestled against black silk lay a necklace that stole my breath. Pearls, but not ordinary ones. These were Baroque pearls, each one irregular and luminous, strung on platinum with a clasp shaped like a delicate snowflake set with what appeared to be genuine diamonds. The kind of piece you saw in museum collections, not on a gallery assistant's desk. There was no card, no note, no indication of who had left such an extravagant gift. I was still staring at it, my practical mind warring with a small flutter of something dangerous in my chest, when I felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. Not literally, but the shift in atmosphere was unmistakable. "Who gave you that?" Kamal's voice came from the doorway, low and controlled in that way that always meant he was anything but. I looked up to find him watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. At 32, Kamal Yilmaz was the kind of man who commanded attention without trying. Dark hair swept back from a face all sharp angles and careful composure. Eyes the color of strong coffee that missed nothing. Today he wore charcoal trousers and a white dress shirt with the top 4 buttons undone, revealing the hollow of his throat and a hint of the defined chest beneath. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, and a Patek Philippe watch caught the light as he crossed his arms. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice steadier than I felt. There was no card. He moved into the room with the fluid grace I'd noticed the first day I interviewed here, when I'd been a nervous recent graduate with a degree in art history and more student debt than prospects. Kamal had looked at my portfolio for exactly 90 seconds before offering me the position. I'd thought it was luck. I'd learned since that Kamal Yilmaz did nothing without calculation. "Let me see it." It wasn't a request. I lifted the box, and he took it from my hands, his fingers brushing mine for the briefest moment. Even that casual contact sent electricity up my arm, a reaction I'd trained myself not to show over 3 years of maintaining professional distance. He examined the necklace with the same focused attention he gave to authenticating a new acquisition. The muscle in his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Baroque pearls," he said quietly. "South Sea, if I'm not mistaken. Natural, not cultured. The platinum is custom work. This piece is worth at least $50,000. He looked up at me, and something in his expression made my heart skip. "You have no idea who sent this?" "None." I hesitated, then added, "Should I be concerned?" "Yes." The single word was final. He snapped the box closed and set it on my desk with careful precision. "Have you received any unusual attention recently? Phone calls, messages, someone lingering outside the gallery?" My mind raced back through the past few weeks. The gallery attracted wealthy clientele, and I'd grown accustomed to the occasional appreciative glance from collectors 3 times my age. But nothing that would explain this. "No," I said. "Nothing like that." Kamal's eyes narrowed slightly. A tell I'd learned meant he was solving a puzzle I couldn't see. "The Christmas gala tomorrow night. You're still planning to attend? I nodded. The annual event was the gallery's biggest night, a showcase for our most prestigious clients, and a networking opportunity I couldn't afford to miss, even though the thought of navigating a room full of the city's elite in a borrowed dress made my stomach tight with anxiety. Good. He straightened, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and bergamot. Wear the necklace. I couldn't possibly. It wasn't a suggestion, Ice. My name in his mouth always sounded different. The way he pronounced it with a slight emphasis on the first syllable that marked his Turkish heritage. Whoever sent this will expect to see you wearing it. I want to know who's watching you that closely. The implication settled over me like ice water. Someone had been watching me, closely enough to know my taste, my work schedule, my desk location. Closely enough to leave a gift worth more than I made in a year. You think it's a threat? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. I think, Kamal said, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult, that someone is trying to claim what isn't theirs to claim. The possessiveness in his tone shocked me. In 3 years, our relationship had been scrupulously professional. He was my employer, nothing more. I was his employee, valuable for my knowledge and discretion, but ultimately replaceable. Or so I'd believed. I should get back to the Klimt authentication, I said, needing to break the tension crackling between us. Ace. He stopped me with just my name. Be careful, and if anything else unusual happens, anything at all, you come to me directly, understood? Yes, Mr. Yilmaz. Kamal, he corrected, surprising me. After 3 years, I think we can dispense with formality. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted into something harder, colder. I have a meeting. Lock your office when you leave tonight. And Ice? He paused at the door. Don't trust anyone who gives you expensive gifts without signing their name. He left, and I sank into my chair, staring at the crimson velvet box like it might contain a snake rather than pearls. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline making my fingers clumsy as I opened the box again and studied the necklace with new eyes. Who would do this? And why? The answer came 2 hours later, delivered by Elif, my best friend, who worked as a curator at the museum across the square. She burst into my office without knocking, her dark eyes bright with gossip. You have to hear what I just learned, she said, then stopped short when she saw the necklace box on my desk. What is that? I was hoping you could tell me. I explained about finding it, about Kamal's reaction, about the expensive mystery. Elif's expression turned serious. She was the one person I trusted completely, the friend who'd stood by me through my parents' deaths, through my struggles to finish university, through every difficulty that had shaped me into someone who noticed details and trusted carefully. Ace, she said slowly. I heard something today. There's a new player in the city, someone who's been making waves in the art world, trying to establish connections. His name is Osman Sahin. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Elif said it made my skin prickle. He's been asking questions about the Yilmaz Gallery, she continued. About Kamal specifically, and about you. About me? The room seemed to tilt slightly. Why would anyone be asking about me? Because you know everything, Elif said simply. You handle all the authentication documents. You know which pieces are arriving when, who the sellers are, what the reserve prices are. If someone wanted inside information about Kamal's business, you'd be the perfect target. The necklace suddenly felt less like a gift and more like a bribe. Or worse, a down payment. I would never, I started, but Elif cut me off. I know that. You know that. But does this Osman know that? She picked up the box, examining the necklace with a curator's eye. This is the kind of gift designed to create obligation, to make you feel special, chosen, to make you wonder who your admirer is and what they want. Kemal told me to wear it tomorrow night, I said. To the gala. Elif's eyebrows rose. Did he now? That's interesting. Why? Because Kemal Yilmaz is many things, but careless isn't one of them. She set the box down carefully. If he wants you to wear this, it's because he's setting a trap. The question is, are you the bait or the hunter? I spent that night unable to sleep, turning Elif's words over in my mind. The Baroque pearls sat in their velvet box on my nightstand, gleaming in the moonlight filtering through my apartment window. I lived modestly, saving every spare dollar, still carrying the financial scars of putting myself through university after my parents died. The idea that someone thought they could buy my loyalty with expensive jewelry was both insulting and terrifying. But there was something else keeping me awake. The look in Kemal's eyes when he'd asked who gave me the necklace, the edge in his voice when he'd said someone was trying to claim what wasn't theirs. Had he meant the gallery's secrets, or had he meant something else entirely? I told myself I was being foolish. Kemal Yilmaz was a successful gallery owner, sophisticated, connected, moving in circles I could never hope to enter. Men like him didn't notice women like me, except as reliable employees who knew how to be invisible when necessary. But his voice echoed in my memory. After 3 years, I think we can dispense with formality. The next morning arrived with fresh snow dusting the city. I dressed for work in my usual understated style, navy trousers and a cream silk blouse, my dark hair pulled back in a neat chignon. Professional, forgettable, safe. The necklace stayed in its box, but I brought it with me, tucking it into my bag like a secret I wasn't ready to share. The gallery hummed with pre-gala preparation. Caterers moved through the space, setting up tables. The collection on display represented the finest pieces Kemal had acquired over the past year, each one positioned to catch the light, to draw the eye, to seduce potential buyers into opening their wallets. I was reviewing the evening's guest list when Kemal appeared in my office doorway again. This time he wore a full suit, midnight blue that made his dark eyes even more intense. But the top 4 buttons of his dress shirt were still undone, a concession to informality that somehow made him more dangerous rather than less. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. I saved my document and followed him through the gallery, past paintings worth millions, past sculptures that had survived centuries. He stopped in front of a small Caravaggio, a study in light and shadow showing a woman's face half illuminated, half hidden. "Do you know what makes art valuable, Aise?" he asked. "Provenance," I answered automatically. "Authentication. Rarity. Historical significance. Context," he corrected. "A painting is just canvas and pigment until someone assigns it meaning, until someone decides it's worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Worth keeping safe from those who would use it for the wrong reasons." I understood then that we weren't really talking about art. "The necklace," I said quietly, "will be returned to its sender," he finished. "Tonight, after the gala, when we know who was watching to see if you'd wear it. And if I refuse? If I choose not to be part of your trap?" He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. "Then you leave this office, this gallery, this city, before whoever sent that necklace decides that gifts aren't enough, before they realize that what they really want isn't information about my business, but leverage over me." The implication hung in the air between us, impossible to misunderstand. "I'm not leverage," I whispered. "No," Kemal agreed, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. "You're much more dangerous than that. You're a vulnerability I didn't plan for." Before I could process that confession, footsteps echoed in the gallery. Kemal stepped back, his professional mask sliding into place so smoothly I might have imagined the moment of raw honesty. "Tonight," he said, loudly enough for the approaching caterer to hear. "Wear the necklace, and Ice, stay close to me, no matter what happens." The Yilmaz gallery transformed as evening fell. What had been a sterile white space during daylight became something almost magical under strategic lighting. Shadows pooled in corners where priceless sculptures stood sentinel. The Caravaggio Kemal had shown me earlier seemed to glow from within. The woman's half-lit face, watching the gathering crowd with knowing eyes. I stood in the employee bathroom, hands trembling as I fastened the Baroque pearl necklace around my throat. The borrowed dress Elif had insisted I wear was deep emerald silk that somehow made my olive skin luminous, my dark eyes larger. I barely recognized myself. The pearls sat heavy and cold against my collarbone, each irregular sphere catching the light. $50,000 worth of obligation hung around my neck, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a terrible mistake. "You look beautiful." Elif appeared behind me in the mirror, already dressed in her own gala attire, a sleek black sheath that made her look sophisticated and untouchable. Though I still think this is a bad idea. Kemal asked me to wear it. I turned from side to side, watching the pearls shift and gleam. He wants to see who's watching. And what if whoever sent it decides to approach you? What then? I had no answer. Kemal's instructions had been clear but vague. Wear the necklace, stay close to him, let the trap spring. But he hadn't explained what would happen when it did. The gallery had filled by the time we emerged. The city's elite moved through the space with practiced ease, champagne flutes in hand, designer clothing worth more than my yearly salary adorning bodies that had never known real hunger or fear. I'd grown accustomed to these events over 3 years, learned to move through them like a ghost, facilitating sales and answering questions while remaining fundamentally invisible. Tonight felt different. Tonight, the weight of the pearls at my throat made me visible in a way that set my nerves on edge. I found Kemal near the Klimt, deep in conversation with a silver-haired collector whose name I couldn't remember. He glanced up as I approached, and something flashed in his dark eyes when he saw the necklace. Not surprise, he'd known I would wear it, but something else. Possession, perhaps, or approval. "Ah, eyes," he said smoothly, extending a hand toward me. "Come meet Mr. Aldridge. He's interested in the provenance of the Klimt." I moved to his side, launching into the familiar recitation of dates and documentation. Mr. Aldridge listened with half his attention, his eyes repeatedly drawn to the pearls at my throat. I saw the moment recognition flickered across his face, followed by calculation. "Lovely necklace," he commented when I finished. "Family heirloom?" "A gift," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "From someone with excellent taste." His smile didn't reach his eyes. And deep pockets. Kemal's hand settled at the small of my back, a possessive touch that sent electricity up my spine. Indeed. Now, about the Klimt's authentication certificates. He smoothly redirected the conversation, but his hand remained against my back, warm through the thin silk of my dress. A claim. A warning. I wasn't sure which. The evening progressed in a blur of introductions and small talk. I felt eyes on me constantly, drawn to the unusual necklace, to my unfamiliar visibility. Normally, I faded into the background at these events. Tonight, I couldn't escape notice. It was nearly 10 when I saw him. He stood near the entrance, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who had the unmistakable bearing of security or worse. But it was the man in the center who commanded attention. Tall, perhaps 40, with silver threading through dark hair and eyes that swept the gallery with predatory assessment. He wore an expensive suit with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to power, and when his gaze landed on me, I felt it like a physical touch. "That's him," Elif whispered at my elbow, appearing from the crowd. "That's Osman Sahin." My heart kicked against my ribs. The man who'd been asking questions about me, about the gallery, about Kamal. The man who, I was suddenly certain, had sent the pearls. Osman began moving through the crowd with deliberate purpose, and I realized with growing dread that he was heading directly toward me. I looked frantically for Kamal, but he was across the gallery, engaged in intense discussion with another collector. Ice Demir. Osman's voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't place. I've been hoping for an introduction. Mr. Sahin. I forced myself to meet his eyes, to keep my voice steady. Welcome to the Yilmaz Gallery. His smile was all charm and calculation. I see you received my gift. It suits you perfectly, just as I knew it would. So there it was. The confirmation. My fingers wanted to fly to the necklace, to tear it off, but I forced them to remain at my sides. It's a very generous gift, too generous for someone you've never met. I prefer to think of it as an investment. He moved closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something heavy and cloying. In a relationship, I hope will prove mutually beneficial. I'm afraid I don't understand. Don't you? His eyes traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl. You're an intelligent woman, Ice. You must know that your position here gives you access to information many people would find valuable. Information. I kept my voice carefully neutral, even as anger began to burn beneath my ribs. I'm not sure what you mean. Come now. Osman's smile widened, showing too many teeth. You handle all the authentication documents. You know which pieces Kamal is acquiring, from whom, and for how much. You know his client list, his contacts, his entire operation. That kind of knowledge is worth far more than a simple necklace. So you admit you sent it as a bribe. The words came out sharper than I intended, my carefully maintained composure cracking. I prefer to call it an opening offer. He reached out as if to touch the pearls, and I stepped back instinctively. His expression hardened slightly. I'm prepared to be very generous, Ice. Far more generous than Kamal Yilmaz has ever been with you. All I ask is a little cooperation, some information shared between friends. I'm not interested in being your friend, Mr. Sahin. I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of dignity my grandmother had taught me. Or your informant. The necklace is beautiful, but I can't accept it. I'll have it returned to you tomorrow. Something dangerous flashed in Osman's eyes. That would be unwise. I don't take rejection well, and Kamal's protection won't last forever. His empire is built on sand, Ice. It's only a matter of time before it crumbles. And when it does, you'll wish you'd made different choices. Is that a threat? My voice came out steadier than I felt. It's a prediction. He glanced past me, and his expression shifted into something colder. Ah, here comes the man himself. I look forward to continuing our conversation, Ice. Soon. Kamal materialized at my side so quickly he must have been watching from across the room. His hand found the small of my back again, but this time his touch was protective rather than possessive. Sahin, he said, his voice glacial. I don't recall seeing your name on the guest list. An oversight, I'm sure. Osman's smile was all teeth. I couldn't miss the opportunity to see your latest acquisitions. And to meet your charming assistant, of course. Such a valuable asset. Miss Demir is leaving, Kamal said flatly. She has other obligations. What a shame. Osman's eyes met mine over Kamal's shoulder. We were just getting acquainted, but I'm sure we'll see each other again very soon. He turned and melted into the crowd, his security detail following like shadows. I realized I'd been holding my breath and released it in a shaky exhale. My office, Kamal said quietly. Now. I followed him through the gallery, aware of curious eyes tracking our movement. The crowd parted for Kamal, their conversations never quite stopping, but definitely noting our passage. We climbed the stairs to the second floor, where his private office overlooked the gallery floor. The moment the door closed behind us, Kamal rounded on me. "What did he say to you?" He admitted sending the necklace. My hands were shaking, adrenaline making me clumsy as I reached for the clasp. "He wants information about your acquisitions, your clients, your business. He thinks I'll spy for him. And will you?" The question was sharp, testing. I stopped, the necklace half undone, and met his eyes. "How can you even ask me that?" "Because $50,000 is a lot of money for someone in your position." His voice was hard, analytical. "Because Sahin is known for finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. Because I need to know if you're a liability I can't afford." The words hit like a slap. After 3 years of loyalty, of discretion, of building this gallery's reputation alongside him, he still saw me as just another potential threat. "Then you don't know me at all," I said quietly. I finished removing the necklace and set it on his desk with deliberate care. "I'll clear out my office tomorrow. You can find someone else to spy for Osman Sahin, or to spy on him for you. I'm done being a pawn in whatever game you're playing." I turned toward the door, but Kamal moved faster than I expected, his hand closing around my wrist. Not painfully, but firmly enough to stop me. "Wait," he said, and there was something different in his voice now. Something raw. That came out wrong. Did it? I refused to look at him, staring instead at his hand on my wrist, at the way his fingers overlapped where they circled my arm. Because it sounded pretty clear to me, I'm just another asset to be managed, another potential vulnerability to be tested. "You're right." The admission shocked me enough that I turned to face him. This close, I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the tiredness he hid so well in public. I phrased it poorly. "But Ice, you have to understand the position we're in. Sahin isn't just a rival collector. He's dangerous. The kind of man who doesn't accept refusal, who sees everything and everyone as tools to be used or obstacles to be eliminated." "Then why put me in his crosshairs?" I pulled my wrist free, but didn't step away. "Why tell me to wear the necklace, to make myself visible?" "Because he was already watching you." Kamal's hand rose as if to touch my face, then fell back to his side. "I've known about his interest in the gallery for weeks, known he was asking questions about you specifically." The necklace confirmed what I suspected. "He's trying to recruit you, to turn you against me. At least now we know for certain." "And what do we do with that certainty?" "We use it." He moved to the window, looking down at the gala below. "Sahin thinks you're vulnerable, that you're just an underpaid assistant who might be tempted by money and attention. He doesn't know that you're the most loyal person I've ever met, that you've had opportunities to sell information before and never even considered it." I blinked. "Other people have tried to bribe me? 3 times in the past year alone." He glanced back at me. "I had them, discouraged, quietly. You never knew because that's what I do. I protect what's mine." There was that word again. Mine. It should have angered me, this casual claim of ownership. Instead, it sent warmth through my chest that I tried desperately to ignore. "I'm not yours, Kamal. Aren't you?" He turned fully to face me, and the intensity in his gaze made breathing difficult. After 3 years of working side by side, of learning to anticipate each other's thoughts, of building something remarkable together, tell me honestly, Isa, if you weren't mine, whose would you be? The question hung in the air between us, charged with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. Downstairs, music had started, some classical piece that filtered up through the floorboards. "I don't belong to anyone," I said. but my voice lacked conviction. Then prove it. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, and suddenly he was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Walk away. Leave the gallery. Leave me. Take a position somewhere safe where men like Osman Sahin won't try to use you to get to me. Go, Ace. If you truly don't belong here, with me, then go. I opened my mouth to say yes, to call his bluff and reclaim my independence. But the words wouldn't come, because the truth was, I had nowhere else I wanted to be. The gallery had become my home, and Kamal, despite his arrogance and his secrets and his dangerous world, had become something more than just an employer. I can't, I whispered. Why not? Because someone has to keep you from making terrible decisions, I said, reaching for humor to diffuse the tension. Like telling your assistant she's a liability after she just spent an evening being interrogated by your enemies. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Fair point. Consider it retracted. You're not a liability, Ace. You're the only person in this building I trust completely. Then trust me with the truth. I met his eyes steadily. What exactly is Osman Sahin after? Because this isn't just about acquiring artwork or stealing clients. There's something bigger happening here. Kamal was silent for a long moment, calculation visible in the set of his jaw. Finally, he moved to his desk and unlocked a drawer, withdrawing a folder I'd never seen before. There's an auction next month, he said. Private, invitation only. A Byzantine artifact is being offered. A reliquary cross that hasn't been seen in public since before World War II. The seller is Russian. The authentication is questionable. But if it's genuine, it's worth over $10 million. I took the folder, scanning the documents inside. Authentication reports, provenance claims, photos of an ornate gold cross encrusted with gems. This is incredible. But why would Sahin? Because he's already bid on it, Kamal interrupted, and lost to me. The seller accepted my offer 3 weeks ago, pending final verification. Sahin knows this. He also knows that if he can't get the cross legally, he'll need inside information to steal it. Information about shipping routes, security measures, storage locations, information that only a few people have access to. Information I have access to, I finished, understanding dawning. That's why he's targeting me. He thinks I'll give him what he needs to steal a $10 million artifact. Exactly. Kamal took the folder back, his fingers brushing mine. And when you refused him tonight, you became a problem that needs to be solved, one way or another. The implications settled over me like ice water. I just made an enemy of a dangerous man, and my only protection was standing in front of me, watching me with eyes that held secrets I was only beginning to understand. What do? I asked. You stay close to me, Kamal said simply. At work, at events, everywhere. You don't go anywhere alone. You don't talk to anyone about the cross or the auction or anything related to my acquisitions. And Isa? His hand rose to cut my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. You wear my protection like armor, because I promise you, anyone who tries to hurt you will have to go through me first. The touch was electric, his palm warm against my skin. I should have stepped back, should have maintained the professional distance that had kept us both safe for 3 years. Instead, I leaned into it, just slightly, and watched something ignite in his dark eyes. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Probably, he agreed. But I stopped caring about good ideas the moment I saw those pearls around your throat and realized someone else was trying to claim you. Before I could respond, before I could think through the implications, his phone buzzed sharply. He stepped back, the spell broken, and answered with a clipped greeting in Turkish. His expression darkened as he listened. We have to go, he said, ending the call. Someone just tried to access the storage facility where the cross is being held. The security company is requesting I come verify nothing was disturbed. Now? In the middle of the gala? Now. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. And you're coming with me. I meant what I said, Isa. From now on, you don't leave my sight. As we descended the stairs and made our way toward the exit, I caught a glimpse of Osman Sayan watching from across the gallery. His expression was calm, pleasant even, but something in his eyes made my blood run cold. The trap had been sprung, but I was beginning to suspect that Kamal and I weren't the only ones setting traps tonight. The storage facility sat in an industrial district at the city's edge, surrounded by chain-link fencing and security cameras that swept the perimeter with methodical precision. Kamal's Mercedes cut through the empty streets at speeds that made my hands grip the leather seat. But his expression remained focused, controlled, revealing nothing of whatever calculations were running through his mind. "Tell me about the first time we met," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tense silence. I blinked at the unexpected question. "Why?" "Because I want to hear you tell it." His eyes remained on the road, but his jaw was tight. "Because someone just tried to breach my most secure facility, and I need to remember why I care." The vulnerability in that admission caught me off guard. I closed my eyes, letting the memory surface. It was raining. Late September, 3 years ago. I came to interview for the assistant position in a suit I'd borrowed from Alif because I'd pawned my good clothes to pay for my last semester's textbooks. "You were 15 minutes early," Kamal said quietly. "Soaking wet. You apologized for dripping on the marble floor. You didn't even look at me at first." The memory was crystal clear, etched in my mind like one of the paintings I'd learned to authenticate. "You were on the phone, speaking Turkish. Something about a shipment delay. I stood there for 10 minutes while you paced the gallery, and I memorized every painting on the walls. And then?" His voice had softened, the hard edges smoothing. "Then you hung up, looked at me for exactly 5 seconds, and asked me to tell you which painting was the forgery." I'd been terrified, fresh out of university, desperate for work, standing in a room full of masterpieces while the owner tested me. But I'd noticed it, the Vermeer that was almost perfect, except the lapis lazuli blue was slightly wrong, the brushstrokes too confident for a 17th century work. "You didn't hesitate," Kamal said. "You walked straight to it and explained exactly why it was fake. Your hands were shaking, but your voice was steady. I hired you on the spot. I thought it was because I was cheap labor. It was because you saw things others missed." He glanced at me briefly, something warm in his dark eyes. "And because I knew immediately that you were someone who valued truth over comfort. Someone who wouldn't look away from difficult realities just because they were inconvenient." The Mercedes turned into the facility's entrance, where a security guard waved us through. The storage building loomed ahead, concrete and steel, designed to withstand anything short of a military assault. Emre Çelik, Kamal's lawyer and head of security, waited at the entrance. He was a compact man in his 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a permanent expression of controlled concern. "Boss, Miss Demir." He nodded to us both. "We've reviewed the footage. Single individual, male, approximately 6 feet tall. He disabled the perimeter camera on the east side and attempted to access the loading dock entrance." "Attempted?" Kamal's voice was sharp. The secondary motion sensors triggered the silent alarm. He fled before breaching the actual building. Emre handed over a tablet showing grainy security footage. A figure in dark clothing moved with professional efficiency, working on the lock for exactly 90 seconds before vanishing into the shadows. "Can you identify him?" I asked, studying the footage. His face was obscured, but his build and movement patterns matched 3 different individuals in Osman Sahin's known network. Emre's expression was grim. "This wasn't random, boss. This was reconnaissance." Kamal's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The cross? untouched, still in secure storage, all seals intact. Emre gestured toward the building. But if they're willing to make a move this bold, they'll try again, and next time they'll be better prepared. We entered the facility, moving through layers of security that would have impressed a bank vault designer. Retinal scanners, key code panels, biometric locks. Each barrier required both Kamal's and Emre's authorization to bypass. The precautions that had once seemed excessive now felt barely adequate. The cross sat in a climate-controlled vault on the third sublevel, nestled in protective foam inside a titanium case. Kamal unlocked it with steady hands, and I held my breath as the lid opened. Byzantine gold gleamed in the LED lighting, worked into intricate patterns that had survived a millennium. Gems that might have been held by emperors caught the light, throwing rainbow refractions across the vault's white walls. It was breathtaking, the kind of artifact that belonged in museums, protected by nations, studied by scholars, and someone wanted to steal it. "Tell me honestly," I said, studying the cross. "Is the authentication solid? Because if this is fake, if someone's running It's genuine." Kamal's voice held absolute certainty. "I've had 3 independent experts verify it. Carbon dating, metallurgical analysis, gemological surveys. This cross was created in Constantinople between 950 and 980 CE. It's real, Isa, which makes it worth killing for." The casual mention of murder sent ice through my veins. "You think Sahin would—" "I think Sahin would do whatever necessary to acquire this piece, including eliminating anyone who stands in his way." He closed the case with deliberate care. "Which is why you're not going back to your apartment tonight, or any night until this is resolved." I stared at him. "You can't be serious." "I have a property in the city. Secure, private, with full-time security. You'll stay there until the auction is complete and the cross is safely delivered to its new owner." He met my eyes, and his expression was implacable. "This isn't a request. You can't just relocate me like I'm another artifact to be stored safely away. Watch me." Kamal turned to Emre. "Have someone collect Miss Demir's essential items from her apartment. Use discretion. I don't want Sahin's people knowing she's moved." "Wait." I caught Kamal's arm, forcing him to face me. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm not some helpless damsel who needs to be locked in a tower. I can take care of myself." "Can you?" His gaze was hard now, the warmth from earlier conversation completely gone. "Can you take care of yourself against professional criminals who've spent weeks planning this operation? Against men who won't hesitate to use violence if bribery doesn't work? Tell me, Ice, what exactly is your plan for dealing with Osman Sahin if he decides to escalate from offering gifts to making threats?" I wanted to argue, to insist on my independence, but the truth was, I had no plan. No defense against the kind of danger Kamal was describing. I'd been naive to think refusing the necklace would be enough, that simply saying no would make me safe. "How long?" I asked quietly. 3 weeks, until the auction concludes and the cross changes hands." He softened slightly, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. "I know it's not ideal, but I can't protect you if I don't know where you are. And I need to protect you, Ace. Not just because you're valuable to the gallery, but because—" He stopped, jaw tightening as if biting back words he wasn't ready to say. "Because?" I prompted, my heart suddenly racing. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw past the careful control to something raw and unguarded beneath. "Because losing you would destroy me in ways that losing a $10 million artifact never could." The confession hung in the air between us, impossible to take back or ignore. Emre had diplomatically moved to the far side of the vault, pretending intense interest in a security panel. "Kamal," I whispered, not sure what I wanted to say, knowing only that something fundamental had shifted between us. "Don't." He stepped back, the walls going up again. Don't analyze it or question it or try to make sense of it. Just accept that you matter to me and let me keep you safe. Can you do that?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good." He turned to Emre. "Triple the security rotation. I want eyes on this facility 24/7. And get surveillance on Sahin's known properties. If he's planning another move, I want advance warning." We left the facility as dawn was breaking, the sky turning the color of pearls, the same color as the necklace still sitting on Kamal's desk, a reminder of how this had all started, with a gift and a question, and a spark of jealousy that had revealed feelings we'd both been hiding. The property Kamal had mentioned turned out to be a penthouse in the most exclusive building in the city's financial district. We arrived as early morning traffic was just beginning to fill the streets, and Kamal used a private elevator that required both a key card and biometric scan to access. The doors opened directly into a space that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, now gilded in sunrise. The interior was all clean lines and subtle luxury, art carefully chosen for impact rather than ostentation. I recognized a Rothko on one wall, a small Giacometti sculpture on a pedestal near the windows. "Guest room is through there." Kamal indicated a hallway. "Everything you need should be in the closet. Clothes, toiletries. I had my assistant stock it last night." "You planned this before the break-in," I observed. "I planned for contingencies. There's a difference." He moved to the kitchen, a gleaming expanse of marble and stainless steel, and started making coffee with practiced efficiency. "Make yourself comfortable. We both need sleep, but there are things we should discuss first." I sank onto the leather sofa, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming. It had been less than 24 hours since I'd found the velvet box on my desk, but it felt like a lifetime. Everything I'd thought I understood about my position at the gallery, about my relationship with Kamal, had been turned upside down. "Here." He handed me a cup of coffee, prepared exactly the way I liked it, black with 1 sugar. The fact that he knew this detail after 3 years of working together shouldn't have made my chest tight, but it did. "Thank you." He settled into the armchair across from me, and for a moment we just sat in silence, drinking coffee as the city woke up below us. It felt strangely domestic, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with the physical space, and everything to do with the shared exhaustion, the shared danger, the shared truth we were both still processing. "Can I ask you something?" I said finally. "Always." "When did it change for you? When did I stop being just an employee?" Kamal was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Do you remember the Matisse authentication? About 18 months ago?" I nodded. A collector had brought in a painting claiming it was an unknown Matisse work. The provenance was sketchy, but the piece was beautiful, and the collector was offering it at below market value. Too good to be true. "You spent 3 days researching it," Kamal continued. "Barely slept. I came in one night around 2 a.m. and found you in the conservation room, comparing brushstroke patterns with a magnifying glass and reference books spread across every surface." I remember. I'd been so focused I hadn't even heard him enter. "You asked if I'd found anything. And you looked up at me with paint analysis charts in your hands and told me it was definitely a forgery. That the paint chemistry was wrong for the period. That Matisse never used that particular shade of cerulean. That the canvas weave was from the wrong decade. You could barely keep your eyes open, but you were so excited about catching the deception." His voice softened. "That's when I knew. That's when I realized you weren't just good at your job. You were passionate about truth, about protecting art from those who would corrupt it. And I wanted to be the kind of man worthy of that passion." My throat tightened with emotion. "Kamal, I don't expect you to feel the same way," he interrupted. "I know the power dynamic makes this complicated. I'm your employer. I control your livelihood and nothing about the situation is fair to you. But I need you to know that whatever happens with Sion, with the cross, with any of this, your position at the gallery is secure. Your safety is my priority, even if you want nothing to do with me personally. I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands. 3 years of professional distance, of careful boundaries, of telling myself that what I felt was just admiration for a talented mentor. All of it crumbling under the weight of his confession and my own long-suppressed truth. "And if I do?" I asked quietly. "Want something to do with you personally?" His eyes darkened. "Then we have a conversation about what that means. About whether you can separate genuine feeling from gratitude or fear or the adrenaline of danger. About whether I can trust that you're choosing this freely, not because you feel obligated or trapped." "I'm not trapped." "Aren't you?" He gestured at the penthouse around us. "You're in my home, under my protection, dependent on me for safety. How can I know that any choice you make right now is truly free?" It was a fair question, an ethical one, the kind of careful boundary setting that showed exactly why I'd trusted him for 3 years. But it also frustrated me. This careful nobility when what I wanted was for him to cross the space between us and kiss me, until I forgot about Byzantine crosses and dangerous rivals, and all the very good reasons we should maintain our distance. "You're overthinking this," I said. "One of us has to." But there was heat in his gaze that contradicted his careful words. My phone buzzed, shattering the moment. I glanced at it and felt my blood run cold. Unknown number, but the message was clear enough. "Beautiful morning, isn't it? Enjoy the sunrise while you can. Some views don't last." Kamal was beside me in an instant, reading the message over my shoulder. His expression went dangerously still. "He knows you're here," I whispered. "Or he's guessing. Testing to see if you'll respond, if you'll reveal your location." Kamal took the phone from my hands. "Don't engage. Don't respond. Let him wonder." But the message had done its work. The brief illusion of safety shattered, replaced by the cold reality that Osman Sahn was still out there, still watching, still determined to use me to get what he wanted. The sunrise had turned the sky the color of blood, and despite the luxury surrounding us, despite Kamal's promises of protection, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both running out of time. The penthouse became my world for the next week. Kamal had arranged everything with the same meticulous attention to detail he brought to gallery acquisitions. My clothes delivered discreetly, my work laptop configured to access the gallery's secure systems remotely, even my favorite tea stocked in the kitchen. He thought of everything except how to navigate the increasingly complicated situation we found ourselves in. We fell into an uneasy routine. Mornings, we worked side by side at the dining table, the city sprawling below us through floor-to-ceiling windows. Kamal handled client calls and acquisition negotiations, while I managed authentication documents and exhibition planning. Professionally, we functioned as smoothly as ever. Personally, the air between us crackled with tension that neither of us seemed willing to address directly. Emre visited daily with security updates. Osman Saheen had gone quiet after the attempted break-in, which somehow made everyone more nervous than his active maneuvering. Kamal had people watching Saheen's properties, but the man was clever, his movements unpredictable. "He's planning something," Emre said on the 5th evening, spreading surveillance photos across Kamal's desk. "He's been meeting with people we can't identify. Cash transactions, encrypted communications. Whatever his next move is, it's going to be significant." I studied the photos while Kamal and Emre discussed security protocols. One image caught my attention. Saheen entering a building I recognized. "That's the Museum of Byzantine Art," I said. "Why would he be going there?" Both men turned to look at me. "Are you certain?" Kamal asked. "I had coffee with Elif there last month. I'd recognize the entrance anywhere." I pointed to the distinctive stonework in the photo. What business would Saheen have at a museum? "Research," Emre suggested. "Establishing provenance for the cross if he manages to steal it." building relationships with curators who might authenticate it for him. Or, I said slowly, an idea forming. He's looking for leverage. The museum has the largest collection of Byzantine artifacts in the region. If he could position himself as a potential donor, gain access to their conservation facilities, their experts, he could build a case that he's the legitimate purchaser of the cross, Kamal finished, his expression darkening. Muddy the waters enough that even if we complete the sale, he could tie it up in legal challenges for years. Can he do that? I asked. With enough money and the right lawyers? Yes. Kamal's jaw tightened. Emre, I need you to reach out to the museum director. Discreetly. Find out what Sain discussed with them. After Emre left, Kamal poured us both wine, a Bordeaux that probably cost more than my monthly salary had been. We stood at the windows, watching the city lights blink on as darkness fell. You're good at this, he said quietly. At what? Seeing patterns, making connections others miss. He glanced at me. You could have your own gallery someday, your own business. You're talented enough. Is this your way of firing me? I tried to keep my tone light, but there was an edge of genuine concern beneath it. It's my way of acknowledging that you deserve more than being caught in the crossfire of my world. He turned to face me fully. You didn't sign up for death threats and protective custody when you took this job, Ice. I didn't sign up for a lot of things. I met his eyes, including developing inconvenient feelings for my employer. But here we are. The confession slipped out before I could stop it, raw and honest in a way that made my heart race. Kamal went very still, his wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. Ice, don't. I set down my own glass with careful precision. Don't tell me why it's complicated or inappropriate or dangerous. I know all that. I've spent 3 years knowing all that. But I'm done pretending that working late together doesn't make my pulse race, that I don't notice the way you look at me when you think I'm focused on paperwork, that I didn't spend the entire gala wanting to rip that pearl necklace off and throw it at Sain's head for daring to try to buy my loyalty when you'd earned it years ago without spending a single dollar. The words tumbled out in a rush, 3 years of suppressed truth finally breaking free. Kamal set down his wine glass slowly, deliberately, his dark eyes never leaving my face. You're right, he said quietly. About all of it. I am. I do look at you when you're working. I have been for months. Watching the way you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating. The way you tuck that one strand of hair behind your ear when you're frustrated. The way your entire face lights up when you successfully authenticate a difficult piece. He moved closer, and my breath caught. I've memorized all your tells, Ice. The professional ones, and the personal ones. I know when you're tired because you rub your left temple. I know when you're anxious because you twist your grandmother's ring. And I know, his voice dropped lower, that I have no right to any of this knowledge. No right to want more. What if I want you to have it? I whispered. What if I want to give you the right? His hand rose to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone in a gesture that was both tender and possessive. Then I would tell you that timing is terrible, that we're in the middle of a dangerous situation that's only going to escalate, that I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. I'm not asking for safety. I leaned into his touch, emboldened by wine and exhaustion, and the truth that was finally out in the open. I'm asking for honesty. Tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not imagining the way you watch me, the way your voice changes when you say my name, the way you've structured your entire life around keeping me close for the past week. You're not imagining it. His other hand found my waist, drawing me closer until there was barely space between us. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing before sleep. You've been under my skin for longer than I want to admit, and having you here, in my space, has been both the sweetest torture and the most natural thing in the world. Then why? I started to ask, but he silenced me with a gentle finger against my lips. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Once I kiss you, Ice, I won't be able to maintain professional distance. I won't be able to pretend you're just an employee, just a colleague. You'll be mine in every way that matters, and I'm a possessive man. I don't share. I don't let go. I need you to understand what you're asking for. The raw honesty in his words should have frightened me. The intensity, the claim of ownership, the promise of possessiveness. But instead, warmth flooded through me, settling somewhere deep in my chest. I understand, I said softly, and I'm asking anyway. For a moment, he just looked at me, as if memorizing this instant before everything changed. Then he lowered his head and kissed me with a hunger that stole my breath and made my knees weak. It wasn't gentle. It was 3 years of suppressed desire finally unleashed, desperate and consuming. His hands tangled in my hair, tilting my head back to deepen the kiss, and I responded with equal fervor, my fingers clutching at his shoulders, as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had turned liquid and uncertain. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kamal rested his forehead against mine. "No going back," he murmured. "No going back," I agreed. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring rather than devouring. Then he took my hand and led me to the bedroom, and the rest of the world, Osman Sahin, the Byzantine cross, danger and complications, faded away until there was only us, and the truth we'd finally stopped denying. Later, tangled in sheets that smelled of cedar and bergamot, I traced patterns on Kamal's chest and tried to process the seismic shift in our relationship. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He captured my wandering hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "Now we deal with the reality that I've just crossed every professional boundary in existence with an employee who's under my protection during a crisis situation. My ethics are questionable at best." "I'm not just an employee anymore," I pointed out. "No." His arm tightened around me. "You're much more dangerous than that. You're the woman who could destroy me with a word, who knows all my secrets, who's seen behind every carefully constructed wall. You're my vulnerability, Asa, and that terrifies me." I propped myself up on one elbow to look at him properly. "I'm not going to destroy you." "Aren't you?" His smile was wry. "You already have. The moment you walked into my gallery 3 years ago with borrowed clothes and determination in your eyes, you started dismantling everything I thought I knew about keeping people at a distance. And now," he tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, "now I'm so far gone that I'd burn down my entire empire before I'd let Sahin touch you." The fierce protectiveness in his voice sent shivers down my spine. "That's a little dramatic." "Is it?" His expression turned serious. "The auction is in 2 weeks. Once the cross changes hands and is safely delivered, Sahin will have no reason to target you. But until then, he's going to escalate. And knowing that you're mine now, that crossing you means crossing me directly, might be the only thing that keeps you safe. So, we're using this," I gestured between us, "as protection. We're acknowledging what's been true for months and letting that truth work in our favor." He pulled me back down against his chest. "I won't apologize for using every weapon in my arsenal to keep you safe, including the fact that harming my partner would bring consequences Sahin can't afford." Partner. The word settled over me like a warm blanket. More intimate than lover, more permanent than girlfriend. It implied equality, collaboration, a future extending beyond this crisis. "I like that," I murmured against his skin. Being your partner. Good. I could hear the smile in his voice. Because you're stuck with me now. I warned you. I don't let go. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, shattering the peaceful moment. Kamal reached for it before I could, his expression darkening as he read the screen. What is it? Elif. He handed me the phone. She's been trying to reach you. Says it's urgent. I called her back immediately, Kamal's arm still wrapped around my waist, anchoring me. Elif answered on the first ring. Finally. I've been calling for an hour. Her voice was tight with stress. Ice. Something happened at the museum. Someone broke into the Byzantine collection last night. My blood ran cold. What was taken? Nothing, as far as we can tell. But they accessed our conservation lab and authentication records, specifically records related to Byzantine reliquaries and cross designs from the 10th century. She paused. Eyes, whoever broke in knew exactly what they were looking for. This wasn't random. I met Kamal's eyes, seeing my own realization reflected there. Sahin, I whispered. He's building a case, Kamal said grimly. Gathering evidence to support his claim if he manages to steal the cross. Museum records would give him provenance documentation, authentication comparisons, everything he'd need to argue he's the legitimate owner. There's more, Elif continued. The director received an anonymous donation offer this morning. $5 million to expand the Byzantine collection. The donor wants to meet next week to discuss terms. Let me guess, I said. The donor is Osman Sahin. How did you know? Because he's trying to establish himself as a legitimate collector and donor, building relationships that will support his claim when he makes his move. I looked at Kamal. We need to warn the museum. On what grounds? Kamal's expression was frustrated. We can't prove Sahin was behind the break-in, and warning them that a potential $5 million donor might be a criminal will only make us look paranoid or jealous. Sahin's too clever for direct accusations. He was right, and I hated it. We ended the call with Elif after making her promise to be careful, to not let anyone know she'd told us about the break-in. He's closing in, I said quietly, methodically eliminating our advantages. Then we need to change the playing field. Kamal rose from the bed with fluid grace, already shifting back into strategist mode. The auction is in 12 days. If we can move up the exchange, complete the sale early, we eliminate Sahin's window of opportunity. Can you do that? I can try. He pulled on clothes with efficient movements. But it means exposing the cross to risk sooner, moving it to a neutral location for authentication and transfer. We'd be vulnerable. We're already vulnerable, I pointed out. He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Not we, Ice. You. Every move Sahin makes is designed to threaten you, to pressure me through you. If I accelerate the timeline, if I force his hand, he might escalate from threats to action. Then we deal with it together. I rose as well, pulling on the silk robe draped across a nearby chair. You said I'm your partner now. That means facing the risks together. For a moment, he just looked at me, jaw tight with the internal war I could see playing out in his dark eyes. The desire to protect me warring with respect for my autonomy. Finally, he nodded. Together, he agreed. But Ice, if something happens, if the situation becomes truly dangerous, we'll handle it, I interrupted firmly. The same way we've handled everything else for 3 years, with intelligence, preparation, and trust. He crossed the space between us and pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my hair. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most reckless. Can't I be both? I asked, my voice muffled against his chest. Definitely both. I felt him smile against my hair. Which is exactly why I'm completely lost to you. The next morning, Kamal made calls to the Russian seller and neutral authentication parties, pushing to accelerate the exchange. To my surprise, they agreed. The seller had grown nervous about keeping such a valuable artifact in his possession, and the authentication team was available earlier than originally scheduled. "We'll move the cross to the verification location in 4 days," Kamal explained, ending his final call. "Complete authentication on day 5, execute the sale on day 6. The buyer's representative will take possession immediately, and the cross will be out of the country within 24 hours. That's fast. It's the only way to stay ahead of Sahin." His expression was grim. "Once authentication is scheduled, we'll need to transport the cross from the storage facility to the neutral location. That's when we're most vulnerable, when he'll have to make his move if he's going to make one at all. Then we'll be ready." Kamal's eyes softened. "I love your confidence. But Ice, you need to understand what being ready might mean. Sahin has resources, connections, people willing to do violent things for money. If he tries to intercept the transport, then we'll have security. You'll have Emre and his team. We'll have planned for every contingency." I moved to stand in front of him, taking his hands in mine. "You're not alone in this anymore, Kamal. Stop trying to carry everything yourself." He studied our joined hands, then raised them to his lips. 4 days, he said quietly. 4 days to prepare for the most dangerous move we've made. And 4 days with you before everything potentially falls apart. It won't fall apart. Your optimism is admirable." But he smiled, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. "And possibly contagious. Against all logic, I'm starting to believe we might actually pull this off." We spent the next 4 days in careful preparation. Emre mapped out 3 different transport routes, arranged for decoy vehicles, coordinated with private security firms. Kamal confirmed and reconfirmed authentication protocols, ensured payment mechanisms were in place, verified the buyer's representative would be ready to take possession immediately. And in the evenings, when the planning was done and the city lights sparkled below us, Kamal and I existed in a bubble of stolen normalcy. We cooked dinner together. Or rather, I watched him cook with the skill of someone who'd learned from his Turkish grandmother. We talked about everything and nothing. Art and music and books, our childhoods, our dreams for the future. "When this is over," Kamal said on the 3rd night, his arms around me as we watched the city from the windows, "I want to take you somewhere. Away from galleries and auctions and dangerous rivals, somewhere we can just be." "Where?" I asked, leaning back against his chest. "Cappadocia, maybe, the fairy chimneys and hot air balloons at sunrise, or the Turkish coast, crystal water and ancient ruins, places that remind me why I fell in love with art and history in the first place." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Places where I can fall in love with you all over again without distraction." "You're already in love with me?" The question came out soft, vulnerable. "Impossibly, irrevocably in love with you," he confirmed. "Have been for longer than I knew. You terrify me, Izzy Demir. You've made me feel things I thought I'd successfully locked away. You've made me hope for things I'd convinced myself weren't possible." I turned in his arms to face him. "Like what?" "Like partnership. Like building something that lasts beyond the next acquisition or sale. Like maybe there's more to life than work and art and maintaining careful distance from everyone." His hand came up to cup my face. "Like maybe I deserve to be happy, and maybe you're the one who can show me how." I kissed him then, pouring 3 years of suppressed emotion into it. When we finally broke apart, his eyes were darker, heated. 4 days, he murmured against my lips. "And then we change everything." But neither of us knew just how prophetic those words would be. Transport day arrived with fresh snow dusting the city, turning everything momentarily pristine. I stood at the penthouse windows, watching the world wake up below. my hands wrapped around a cup of Turkish coffee Kamal had made. He moved through the space with focused energy, dressed in black tactical clothing that made him look dangerous and unfamiliar. "The team is in position," Emre reported, studying multiple tablet screens showing security camera feeds. "Routes A, B, and C all have spotters. Decoy vehicles deployed. Medical response on standby. We're as ready as we can be." "And Sahin?" Kamal asked. "No movement from his known properties. But boss..." Emre's expression was troubled. "That might mean he's already positioned his people. If he knows today is transport day, he's had time to set up." "How would he know?" I asked. Both men looked at me with varying degrees of concern. "Because information leaks," Kamal said quietly. "No matter how careful we are, people talk. Money changes hands. And Sahin is very good at finding the right pressure points." "You think someone in your organization told him?" "I think it's a possibility we have to consider." He moved to the windows beside me, his hand finding the small of my back. "Which is why you're staying here. The security in this building is..." "I'm going with you." I set down my coffee and turned to face him fully. "We discussed this." "No, we didn't discuss it. I told you that you'd be safest here, and you nodded." I nodded to acknowledge that I'd heard you, not that I agreed. I met his eyes steadily. "I'm the one who authenticated the cross initially. I'm the one whose signature is on the documents. If something goes wrong during the transport, if there are questions about the piece's legitimacy, you need me there." "That's a convenient rationalization for putting yourself in danger," Kamal said, his jaw tightening. "It's also true." I reached up to touch his face, feeling the tension in his jaw beneath my palm. "You said we're partners. That means facing risks together. Partners doesn't mean stupidly walking into dangerous situations." "Then what does it mean?" I challenged. "You getting to make all the decisions while I wait in a safe room somewhere? That's not partnership, Kamal. That's protection disguised as care." "Maybe protection is care," he countered. "Maybe caring about someone means prioritizing their safety over their pride. And maybe caring about someone means trusting their judgment even when it scares you." I held his gaze, refusing to back down. "I'm going. If you lock me in here, I'll find a way out and meet you there anyway. At least if I'm with you from the start, you can actually protect me." Emre cleared his throat diplomatically. "Boss, she has a point about the authentication. If there are any questions during the exchange, having her present eliminates delays." Kamal's expression made it clear what he thought about Emre taking my side. But after a long moment, he nodded curtly. "Fine. But you stay in the vehicle at all times. No exceptions. If shooting starts..." "Shooting?" My voice came out higher than intended. "If shooting starts," he continued, "you get down and stay down until Emre gives the all clear. Understood?" I nodded, suddenly very aware of what I'd just insisted on being part of. This wasn't a gallery showing or a client meeting. This was actual danger, with actual weapons and actual consequences. Kamal must have seen the fear flicker across my face, because his expression softened slightly. "It's not too late to change your mind. No one would think less of you for choosing safety." "I would," I said quietly. "I'd think less of myself, for letting you face this alone when we're supposed to be in this together." Something warm flickered in his dark eyes. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "If anything happens to you," he murmured against my skin, "I will burn down everything Sion owns and salt the earth where his empire stood." The fierce vow should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel cherished, protected, claimed in a way that went beyond possession into something deeper. "Nothing's going to happen," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "We've planned for everything." 30 minutes later, I was in the back of an armored Mercedes, Kamal on one side and Emre on the other. 2 security vehicles flanked us, and I knew from Emre's briefing that 3 more teams were moving through the city on different routes, creating confusion about which transport held the actual cross. The titanium case sat between Kamal and me, innocuous despite its valuable contents. I touched it lightly, feeling the cool metal through my gloves. "Second thoughts?" Kamal asked quietly. "Third and fourth thoughts," I admitted. "But I'm still here." His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. "Stay close to me, whatever happens." The drive to the neutral location, a secured facility near the port, should have taken 20 minutes. We were 12 minutes in when Emre's phone buzzed. "Route B team reporting suspicious vehicle," he said, reading the message. "Black van, no plates, following at a distance." He tapped out a response. "They're breaking off, leading it away from our position." "Good." Kamal's voice was tense. "Status on Route A?" "Clear. Route C." Emre's phone buzzed again. His face paled. "Boss, Route C vehicle was hit. Professional job. Team is alive, but the decoy case is gone." "So Sahin knows 2 of the 3 were decoys," I said, my mouth suddenly dry. "Which means—" "He knows we're the real transport," Kamal finished grimly. "Emre, contact the port facility. We need to divert." The impact came from the left side, sudden and violent. Our Mercedes spun, protected by armor but not immune to physics. I slammed against my seatbelt, Kamal's arm shooting out to brace me even as his other hand gripped the door handle. "Get us out of here!" Emre shouted at the driver. The Mercedes surged forward, but a second vehicle had appeared ahead, cutting off our path. We were boxed in, professional precision trapping us on a quiet industrial street with no witnesses. "Lock it down," Kamal ordered, his voice deadly calm despite the chaos. His hand moved to his jacket, and I realized with shock that he was pulling out a gun. I'd known intellectually that he had security, that his world sometimes required force. Seeing the weapon in his hand made it visceral reality. The doors to the vehicles trapping us opened. 6 men emerged, all armed, all moving with military efficiency. I recognized the calculated choreography. These weren't street criminals or opportunistic thieves. These were professionals. Emre was on his phone, calling for backup, but I could see from his expression that help wouldn't arrive in time. "Stay down," Kamal said to me, his voice soft despite the hardness in his eyes. "No matter what happens, Ice, you stay in this vehicle, and you stay down. Kamal, promise me." His eyes met mine, and I saw fear there for the first time since I'd known him. Not fear for himself, but for me. "Promise me you won't try to be brave, just survive." "I promise," I whispered. He kissed me once, hard and fast, then turned to the window as one of the armed men approached. The window lowered slightly, and Kamal called out in Turkish, words I couldn't follow but tone that was clear. "Negotiation, not surrender." The man responded, and I caught one word I recognized. "Sahin." "He wants the cross," Kamal said, not turning from the window. "He's offering to let us leave unharmed if we hand it over now." "Don't." I gripped his arm. "We can't just give him a $10 million artifact because he threatened us." "I can replace artifacts," Kamal said quietly. "I can't replace you." Before I could respond, before I could process that he was seriously considering surrendering to protect me, a new vehicle roared onto the street. Not one of ours, but not one of Sahin's either. The door opened and a woman emerged, moving with professional grace, a badge visible at her hip. "This is Detective Yilmaz, Turkish National Police," she called out in clear English. "Drop your weapons and step away from the vehicles. You're all under arrest for attempted armed robbery." The men surrounding us hesitated, looking to their apparent leader for direction. In that moment of confusion, Our backup arrived. 2 more security vehicles appearing from side streets, creating a perimeter. Sahin's men weren't stupid. Outnumbered and facing law enforcement, they retreated to their vehicles and scattered, leaving us shaken but unharmed. Detective Yilmaz approached our Mercedes as Kamal opened the door. She was younger than I expected, mid-30s, with sharp eyes that assessed the situation quickly. "Mr. Yilmaz," she said with a slight nod, "we've been monitoring Osman Sain's activities for several months. Your tip about the storage facility break-in gave us the evidence we needed for surveillance authorization." "You've been following us," Kamal said, not a question. "We've been following Sain's organization. You were bait, whether you knew it or not." Her eyes flicked to me. "Miss Demir, I presume? You're quite brave, or quite foolish to be out here today." "Bit of both," I managed, my voice shaky. "The cross?" the detective asked. Kamal gestured to the case. "Authenticated and ready for sale. Legally purchased from a legitimate seller. Everything documented and above board." "Good. Then you won't mind if I escort you to the verification facility personally. Make sure you arrive without further incident." It wasn't really a question. With the police escort and our own security, the rest of the journey passed without incident. The neutral location was a fortress, concrete and steel designed specifically for high-value art transfers. The authentication team was already there, professionals I'd worked with before who greeted me with respectful nods. The verification process took 3 hours. Every aspect of the cross examined, every previous authentication reviewed, new tests run to confirm what we already knew. It was genuine, spectacular, worth every penny of the 10 million Kamal had committed. The buyer's representative, a severe German woman named Kraus, inspected the cross with the same intensity I'd brought to my own authentication months before. Finally, she nodded. "It is as represented. The funds will transfer immediately." Kamal's phone pinged with the confirmation. $10 million deposited into his business account. The cross was packed with meticulous care into a specialized transport case, and Kraus's own security team took possession. Just like that, it was over. We drove back to the penthouse in silence, Emre making calls to coordinate cleanup and security reviews. Detective Yilmaz had promised to keep us updated on Sahin's arrest, though she'd warned that a man with his resources and connections might not stay detained long. "We'll keep the case open," she'd said. "His attempt to intercept the transport gives us leverage, but he'll make bail, and then—" She'd shrugged, the implication clear. "And then we'd be back to watching our backs." Inside the penthouse, safe behind multiple layers of security, I finally allowed myself to shake. The adrenaline that had kept me focused during the attack drained away, leaving me hollow and trembling. Kamal pulled me into his arms immediately, one hand cradling the back of my head. "It's over," he murmured. "You're safe. We're safe. For now," I said into his chest. "Sahin isn't going to just give up." "No," he agreed. "But he's lost this round. The cross is gone, out of the country. He has no leverage over us anymore." I pulled back to look at him. "Are you sure?" Because it felt like he was just getting started. Kamal's expression was grim, which is why I'm going to make sure he understands that targeting you comes with consequences he can't afford. I have resources too, Aisa. Connections and influence. I've been playing nice, trying to stay on the legal side of things. But if Sahin wants a real war, I'll give him one. The cold determination in his voice reminded me that Kamal Yilmaz was more than just a gallery owner, more than just my employer turned lover. He operated in a world where power meant everything, and showing weakness could be fatal. "Don't do anything that puts you at risk," I said. "I can't lose you. Not after everything." "You won't." He kissed me softly. "I promise you, Ace. Whatever happens next, we face it together. No more secrets, no more protection through ignorance. You're in this with me now, for better or worse." "Worse seems to be showing up pretty frequently," I observed. Then we're due for some better. He led me to the windows, where the city sparkled below us. Starting now, the cross is sold, the immediate danger is past, and I have you safe in my arms. That's as better as it gets. I leaned into him, letting his warmth and solidity anchor me. What happens now? Do I go back to my apartment? Back to the gallery like nothing happened? Do you want to? I considered the question seriously. My tiny apartment felt like a lifetime ago, a different person's life. The gallery would never be the same now that everyone would know about our relationship. And the thought of leaving this space, of not waking up beside Kamal, made my chest tight with something like grief. No, I admitted. I don't want to go back. Then don't. His arms tightened around me. Stay here, with me. Let's see what better looks like when we're not running from danger or hiding from our feelings. It should have felt too fast, too much. We'd only been together romantically for a little over a week. But in truth, we'd been building toward this for 3 years, and the intensity of what we'd just survived had burned away any pretense of taking things slow. Okay, I said, but I want my own closet space. Your clothes are taking up way too much room. He laughed, the sound genuine and relieved. Reasonable demand. Anything else? I want to redecorate the guest room, turn it into an office. If I'm going to keep working for you, I need a proper workspace. Granted, though I should mention that I'm planning to make you a partner in the gallery. 50-50 split on all future acquisitions and sales. He said it casually, as if offering to share a multi-million-dollar business was a minor detail. I turned to stare at him. Kamal, you can't just... I can, and I am. You've earned it, Ice. 3 years of dedication, of building the gallery's reputation through your authentication work, of managing acquisitions that have tripled our annual profits. You deserve to be a partner in every sense. His eyes were serious. Besides, it'll make the power dynamic less problematic. Hard to argue you're being coerced when you own half the business. That's very pragmatic. I'm a pragmatic man. But his smile was warm. Say yes, Ice. Be my partner in everything. Business, life, whatever comes next. Yes, I said, the word coming easily despite the magnitude of what I was agreeing to. To all of it. We sealed the agreement with a kiss that turned heated, urgent, life-affirming after the day's brush with danger. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kamal rested his forehead against mine. Merry early Christmas, he murmured. Though I think we've had enough excitement for one holiday season. I laughed, giddy with relief and happiness, and the sheer impossibility of everything that had happened since I'd found that velvet box on my desk. Next year, I promised, we're doing quiet. Just us, no Byzantine artifacts, no dangerous rivals. Normal. I'll believe it when I see it, he said, but it's a nice dream. We didn't know it then, but normal was exactly what we were about to get. Or at least, as normal as life could be when you were in love with a man who moved between the art world's legitimate elegance and its shadowy underbelly. But that was a story for tomorrow. Tonight, we had safety in each other, and for now, that was enough. The first snowfall of December always reminded me of that Christmas when everything changed. I stood at the windows of what was now our penthouse, watching fat flakes drift past the glass, a cup of Turkish coffee warming my hands. You're going to freeze standing there in just that robe. Kamal's voice came from behind me, rough with sleep. His arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against his chest. Come back to bed. It's barely 6. Couldn't sleep. I leaned into his warmth, still marveling sometimes at the casual intimacy we'd built over the past year. Too excited about tonight. The museum opening? He pressed a kiss to my temple. It's going to be perfect. You've worked on this for months. the Demir collection of Byzantine art. My museum, built from a dream Kamal had encouraged and funded, opening tonight with a gala that would showcase the pieces we'd acquired together over the past year. Legitimate acquisitions, everyone authenticated with the same care I'd brought to the gallery, but now under my own name, my own authority. The gallery itself had transformed too. Yilmaz and Demir Fine Arts had become one of the city's premier auction houses, our reputation for integrity and expertise drawing clients from across Europe and Asia. Kamal and I worked side by side, true partners in every sense, and the business had never been stronger. As for Osman Sahin, he'd been arrested 3 more times over the past year. Each time he'd made bail, and each time he'd emerged more cautious, less openly aggressive. The last I'd heard, he'd left the country, his operations relocated to Dubai where his reputation hadn't preceded him. Detective Yilmaz had called it a win. I called it a reprieve. Men like Sahin didn't give up. They just changed tactics. But today wasn't for worrying about old enemies. Today was for celebrating how far we'd come. "Come shower with me," I said, turning in Kamal's arms. "We have a big day ahead." "That's the best idea you've had this morning." He kissed me, slow and thorough, then led me toward the bathroom with its obscene soaking tub and rainfall shower. Some luxuries I'd never quite gotten used to, even after a year of living here. The museum opening that evening was everything I'd dreamed and more. The renovated building gleamed under strategic lighting, each Byzantine piece displayed to highlight its beauty and historical significance. Collectors and curators moved through the space with appreciative murmurs, and I caught Alif beaming at me from across the room. She'd been promoted to chief curator at her own museum, and we'd collaborated on several acquisitions that benefited both our collections. The professional partnership felt like vindication, proof that my expertise was recognized beyond just being Kamal's partner. "Isid Demir." A familiar voice made me turn. Detective Yilmaz approached, elegant in evening wear rather than her usual professional attire. "Congratulations on the opening. The collection is remarkable." "Thank you, Detective. I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wouldn't miss it." Her eyes scanned the room with professional habit. "And I have some news that might interest you. Osman Sahin was arrested in Dubai last week. Attempted art theft from a private collector. The charges will likely stick this time. The collector has resources and a long memory. Sahin won't be bothering you again." Relief washed through me, though I'd learned not to entirely trust such assurances. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for the invitation." She moved on to examine a 10th century reliquary, leaving me with the gift of closure. Kamal found me a few minutes later, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You look radiant," he said, offering me a glass. "Happy." "I am happy." I touched my glass to his. "This feels right, you know? Building something that lasts, something meaningful beyond just profit." "I do know." His eyes held that warmth I'd come to cherish, the look that said I was his entire world. "Which is why I have something for you." He produced a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, crimson red with gold edging. My breath caught, memory flooding back to another velvet box, another Christmas, another beginning. "Kamal, open it." Inside, nestled against black silk, lay the Baroque pearl necklace Osman Sahin had sent a year ago. The same irregular pearls, the same platinum setting. But the clasp had been changed, the original snowflake replaced with a new design. 2 birds in flight, intertwined, worked in platinum with tiny diamond accents. "I had it remade," Kamal explained quietly. "Took back something that was meant to control you, and transformed it into something that celebrates your freedom. Your choice to stay with me not because you had to, but because you wanted to." Tears blurred my vision. "It's perfect. There's more." He took the necklace from the box and fastened it around my throat with practiced ease. Then he knelt, there in the middle of the museum we'd built together, surrounded by artifacts that had survived centuries. Ice Demir, he said, his voice carrying across the sudden hush as people noticed what was happening. You walked into my gallery 3 years ago and changed everything. You made me believe in partnership, in trust, in building something that lasts. You made me want to be worthy of you. He pulled out a second box, smaller, opening it to reveal a ring that stole my breath, a sapphire the color of midnight, flanked by diamonds, the setting elegant and timeless. I know we've only been together romantically for a year, he continued, but I've been yours for far longer than that. I've been yours since the moment you identified that fake Vermeer without hesitation, since the night I found you hunched over authentication reports at 2 a.m., since every moment we've built this life together. Marry me, Ace. Be my partner in everything for the rest of our lives. The answer came without hesitation. Yes. The room erupted in applause as he slipped the ring onto my finger and rose to kiss me. Elif was crying openly, Detective Yilmaz was smiling, and the gathered guests raised their glasses in impromptu celebration. Merry Christmas, Kamal murmured against my lips, though I think this is technically a Christmas Eve proposal. Best Christmas gift I've ever received, I said, admiring the way the ring caught the light. Though you set a pretty high bar last year. Last year I gave you terror and danger and a criminal trying to blackmail you. You also gave me yourself, your trust, your partnership, your love. I touched his face, feeling the slight stubble along his jaw. Everything that mattered. Then I'm repeating the gift, he said, because that's all I have to give, myself, completely, for as long as you'll have me. How about forever? I suggested. Forever works. We married 3 months later in a small ceremony overlooking the Bosphorus, the place where Kamal's family had originated generations before. His grandmother, elegant and sharp-eyed at 87, gave us her blessing in Turkish and broken English, her hands warm on my cheeks as she welcomed me to the family. Elif stood as my maid of honor, resplendent in emerald silk. Emre served as best man, his usual stern expression softening when Kamal's voice cracked slightly during his vows. I promise to protect you, Kamal said, his hands holding mine. Not by hiding you away or making decisions for you, but by standing beside you as you face the world. I promise to trust your judgment, your expertise, your heart. I promise to build with you, not for you. To be your partner in every way that matters. My own vows were simpler. I promise to see you, not just the gallery owner or the businessman or the powerful man everyone else sees. I promise to challenge you, support you, love you even when you're being stupidly overprotective. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home. The reception lasted until dawn, Turkish and Western traditions blending seamlessly. We danced until my feet ached, drank champagne until everything sparkled, celebrated with friends and family who'd seen us through the dangerous early days into this peaceful present. As the sun rose over the city, Kamal and I stood on the terrace of the venue, watching light paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. Ready for the honeymoon? He asked, his arm around my waist. Cappadocia, right? Fairy chimneys and hot air balloons? I'd remembered his promise from a year ago, surprised when he'd actually booked it. A week of nothing but us. Ancient history and spectacular views. No gallery openings, no authentication crises, no dangerous rivals. Just peace. Sounds perfect. I leaned into him, content and complete in a way I'd never thought possible. Though I have to admit, part of me will miss the excitement. Give it time. His smile was wry. Something tells me our life together won't ever be entirely boring. Not when we're constantly finding lost masterpieces and building museums and generally making waves in the art world. Fair point. I turned to face him fully, the first rays of sunrise gilding his features. But whatever comes, we face it together. That's the promise, right? Partnership in everything. Partnership in everything, he agreed, sealing the vow with a kiss that tasted of champagne and tomorrow, and all the possibilities we'd built from a suspicious gift and a jealous question. 5 years later, I stood in the same museum that had hosted our engagement, now expanded to twice its original size. The Demir Yilmaz Museum of Byzantine Art had become internationally recognized, our collection rivaling institutions that had been established for centuries. But tonight wasn't about the museum. Tonight was about the newest addition to our family. I adjusted my dress, emerald silk, a deliberate echo of my wedding, and checked my appearance one final time. At 33, I'd grown into myself in ways my 25-year-old self could never have imagined. Confidence that came from expertise hard-won, from challenges faced and overcome, from a partnership that had weathered every storm. Ready? Kamal appeared behind me in the mirror, now 40, silver threading through his dark hair in a way that only made him more distinguished. Our daughter, 2-year-old Aylin, named for the Turkish word for moonlight, babbled happily in his arms. Ready, I confirmed, taking Aylin from him and pressing a kiss to her dark curls. We descended to the museum's main gallery, where friends and colleagues had gathered, not for an acquisition or an opening, but for something more personal. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice carrying across the space. 5 years ago, this museum opened with a collection of Byzantine artifacts. Tonight, we're expanding our focus. Kamal stepped forward, taking over seamlessly. The Demir Yilmaz Foundation will now fund acquisitions and research across multiple periods and regions. Our goal is to preserve cultural heritage while making it accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or resources. To that end, I continued, we're announcing full scholarships for 10 students annually to study art history, conservation, and museum curation, because someone once gave me a chance when I had nothing but determination and a borrowed suit. It's time to pass that gift forward. The applause was genuine, warm. Elif approached with tears in her eyes, pulling me into a fierce hug. Your grandmother would be so proud, she whispered. I hope so, I said, my own throat tight with emotion. The evening progressed with the easy rhythm of successful events. Donors mingled with students, curators discussed new acquisitions, children, including Aylin, explored the carefully protected interactive exhibits we'd designed specifically for young visitors. As the party wound down, Kamal found me in the gallery where it had all started. The Caravaggio that had witnessed our first honest conversation still hung there, the woman's half-lit face as enigmatic as ever. Thinking about that day? He asked, slipping an arm around my waist. Thinking about everything. How much has changed? How much hasn't? Such as? I still love authenticating pieces. Still get excited when we acquire something special. Still think you're impossibly bossy sometimes. Only sometimes? He feigned hurt. More often than I admit. I leaned into him, watching our reflection in the protective glass over the painting. A family now, not just a couple. A partnership that had expanded to include new life, new dreams. But I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the scary parts? His arms tightened around me. The attacks, the threats, the danger? Not even those. I turned to face him. Because they led us here. To this life we've built. To Aylin. To the foundation and the museum and all of it. We took something dark and terrifying and transformed it into something beautiful. We did, didn't we? He kissed me softly, though I maintain that you did most of the transforming. I was just lucky enough to be along for the ride. Liar. But I smiled. We both know I'm the lucky one. How about we both got lucky? Deal. Aylin's babbling drew our attention. She'd escaped from Aleph supervision and was toddling toward us with the determined gait of a 2-year-old on a mission. Kamal scooped her up, and she immediately reached for the pearls at my throat. The Baroque strand I wore almost every day now, transformed from threat to treasure. "Mama pretty," she declared with the absolute certainty of a toddler. "Mama is pretty," Kamal agreed. "And smart and brave and everything we could ever want. Don't forget stubborn," I added. "That's why we love you." He shifted Aylin to one arm, his other coming around my shoulders. Stubborn enough to refuse a bribe, to stand up to danger, to demand partnership instead of protection. Stubborn enough to believe we could build something extraordinary together. As I looked around the museum, at the artifacts we'd preserved, the students we'd funded, the family we'd created, I had to admit he was right. We had built something extraordinary. From a Christmas gift that was meant to control, from jealousy that revealed truth, from danger that forged partnership. "Merry Christmas," I said, even though it was July. Because every day with Kamal and Aylin felt like the gift I'd never known to ask for. "Merry Christmas, my eyes," he replied, understanding perfectly. "Every day with you is Christmas morning." We stood there, the three of us, surrounded by centuries of art that had survived wars and time and human carelessness. And I thought about survival, about transformation, about how the best things in life often come from the most unexpected places. A velvet box on a desk, a jealous question, a Byzantine cross worth fighting for, all of it leading to this: a family, a partnership, a love that had weathered every test and emerged stronger. In the end, Osman Sahin had given me the greatest gift of all, though he'd never intended to. He'd revealed what Kamal and I meant to each other, forced us to acknowledge feelings we'd been hiding, created a crisis that showed us exactly what we were willing to fight for. And we'd fought. Not with weapons or violence, but with intelligence and partnership and stubborn refusal to let anyone else write our story. We'd won. Not just the battle for a Byzantine cross, but the war for our future. Together. And that, I thought, as Aylin yawned and nestled against Kamal's shoulder, that was the best Christmas gift of all. Love doesn't always arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes it comes as a mysterious gift, a jealous question, and a journey through danger that reveals what truly matters. Icy and Kamal discovered that real partnership isn't about protection, but about standing together through every storm. If this story touched your heart, click like and tell me, have you ever received an unexpected gift that changed your life in ways you never imagined?